Lewis committed suicide. Lewis's will, written right before he died.
En route to Fort Pickering, he wrote a will, a second will, because his first will, apparently, William Clark was his executor. But writing a will like that very shortly before one would die is not something that would be considered a typical thing to do unless, on some level, the person was considering killing himself.
In that second will, Lewis replaced Clark and left his estate to his mother, an unexpected decision that adds to the mystery of his final days.
I think the end for Meriwether Lewis came when it did, in part because he was by himself. And his best friend in life, William Clark, wasn't there for him. And he was on his way back to Washington to face a hostile political environment. And he also had returned to drinking. And I think that the effects of that was too much for him. And I think the opportunity to kill himself presented itself, and the demons knocked on his door, and Meriwether Lewis answered the door.
When William Clark found out about Lewis's death, he lamented, "I fear the weight of his mind has overcome him." The Pecks believe Clark's instincts were right and that Meriwether Lewis committed suicide. But let's remind ourselves, this is still just a theory. No one saw Lewis get shot or do the shooting. While the cause of Meriwether Lewis's death may be in doubt, the cause of his life isn't. Lewis was devoted to his country, and without his bravery and selflessness, we may never have come to know the United States of America as we do today. It's September 17th, 1961. It's just before 4 p.m. I'm in the Republic of the Congo in Africa as a Douglas DC-6 readies for takeoff. It's waiting for this man, who's embarking on a secret mission. His name is Dag Hammarskjöld, the Swedish Secretary General of the United Nations. He is the most powerful diplomat on Earth, and right now he's racing to stop a civil war from tearing the Congo apart. But with billions in resources and Cold War interests at stake, powerful forces are betting against him. And in just a few hours, this plane will crash, and Hammarskjöld will be dead. Authorities will blame pilot error, but was it really an accident or an ambush in the skies? Strap in. We're heading for some serious turbulence. In 1953, Swedish diplomat Dag Hammarskjöld becomes the UN's second Secretary General. Hammarskjöld brings charisma, idealism, and practicality to the role, believing the organization can hold a divided world together. In Africa, he faces his greatest test and his most dangerous mission. After decades of Belgian rule, the Congo gains independence in 1960, but quickly begins to fall apart as foreign powers compete for its mineral wealth. Its richest province, Katanga, tries to break away, with Belgium accused of supporting the split. Hammarskjöld sees this as a threat to the country's survival and moves to keep the Congo united. But the UN mission grows increasingly controversial. By September 1961, fighting escalates. Civilians are caught in the crossfire, and tensions rise with Western governments over how the situation is being handled. Determined to stop the crisis, Hammarskjöld secretly arranges a meeting with Katangan leader Moise Tshombe in British-controlled northern Rhodesia on September 18th. On the afternoon of September 17th, he boards a DC-6 named Albertina, with a crew of 7 and 8 UN aides and security personnel, led by 36-year-old American Sergeant Harold Julian. But they will never arrive at their destination. Here are the facts. Shortly after midnight on September 18th, Hammarskjöld's plane, the Albertina, crashes in Congo's neighboring nation of Rhodesia, roughly 9 miles from the Ndola Airport runway. 15 hours later, search and rescue teams finally reach the crash site around 3 p.m. Of the 16 people aboard, 15 are already dead, including Dag Hammarskjöld. Amazingly, one man survives. Security officer Harold Julian is badly burned and barely breathing. According to the accounts of the first responders, Dag Hammarskjöld lies just beyond the fuselage, on his back, clothes intact, oddly untouched by fire. The rest of the victims are charred almost beyond recognition. News of the tragedy shocks the world. Dag Hammarskjöld is mourned for his leadership and his belief that diplomacy could heal a broken world.
I know that I'm speaking for my fellow Americans, expressing our deep sense of shock and loss in the untimely death of the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Dag Hammarskjöld.
After Hammarskjöld's death, violence in Gauteng escalates, forcing the UN to launch one of its largest military operations, made up of international troops from member nations. Thousands move in, but it takes nearly a year and a half of heavy fighting to end the secession. Dag's UN mission to prevent civil war in the Congo ultimately succeeds, but he loses his life in the process. And many wonder whether his death was truly an accident, or a deliberate attempt to stop peacekeeping efforts. In the immediate aftermath of the crash, the government of Northern Rhodesia launches an inquiry. Their conclusion? Pilot error. According to the version, the crew of the Albertine navigating without radar in darkness toward an unfamiliar airstrip simply misjudged their altitude. The plane clipped trees, broke apart, and crashed. So, case closed? Not so fast. That's because the sole survivor of the crash tells a different story, and it could blow the pilot error theory wide open. Dag Hammarskjöld's plane crash is originally dismissed as an accident caused by pilot error, but one eyewitness's account calls that into question. Against all odds, lone survivor, UN security officer Harold Julian, has made it out of the crash and lies in a hospital bed, badly burned and gravely injured. In brief moments of consciousness, Harold describes the plane exploding mid-air. Quote, a lot of small explosions around, he says. But if the crash was simply the result of navigational error, why were there explosions before impact? He clings to life for 5 days before succumbing to his injuries at Ndola Hospital on September 23rd. In their final report, Rhodesian authorities dismiss his testimony as the confused ramblings of a dying man. Officials also hear from local witnesses who claim a second, smaller plane was flying above Hammarskjöld's aircraft as it circled Ndola Airport that night. Several report loud explosions and say the Albertina burst into flames before crashing.